All right, so I'm currently on the phone with Angela Hart. She's another musician that reached out about the current interview series. So I'm going to go ahead and give her the chance to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Angela Hart. It is great to be chatting with you today, Alex. I've done a little bit of everything in music, but my new current project is kind of indie pop, dark pop. So I'm excited to be here and talk to another fellow music lover.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, so let's kind of get into, the details of it. Why don't you give me some information about, how you first came in contact with music? What about it kind of, reached into you and made you want to pursue it?
Absolutely. So I grew up singing. My family used to joke that I came out singing, and my dad's a musician. He plays guitar. And so music was always a part of our household. I remember falling asleep listening to him playing guitar when I was a kiddo. And I used to make like little tickets for everybody to come see my performances on the fireplace as a kid. And I did music theater and I was a cheerleader and all the music things really. And then, life brings you this moment, this decision making time. And I didn't want to be a broke artist. So I was like, I'll go the corporate route. And I spent about a decade actually in the dental and IT support industries and actually barely sang, which I always thought, hey, I can make music on the side. But funny as time goes along that I didn't have really any time for music. And I think I'd sing karaoke like twice a year at a senior center. And that was the extent of my music. And then it was probably 4 years ago now. One of my bosses, a great mentor, actually, I've come to be very close to him over time. He asked me, what's not on your resume? And I said, well, I love to sing. So we ended up starting a work band, which was pretty funny and awesome adventure. We would play at like award ceremonies and potlucks and Christmas parties. And, we weren't bad, honestly. We weren't amazing either, but it kind of brought music back into my life in this huge surge. And I had this moment. I don't really watch sports at all, but I saw a meme and it said, some people go to watch the game and some people wish they were playing on the field. And that night I went and saw Haley Reinhart, who is one of my favorite musicians. And the whole time I sat there thinking, some people actually come to the concert and wish that they don't think about being on the stage. They're just here to make music. And it was this really like interesting moment for me. Because I had always assumed, of course, everybody wants to be up there. Like, isn't that everyone's dream? And so the next day I messaged my band and I was like, hey guys, we're going to start this. I'm going to try this for real. And if it never goes anywhere, then whatever. But I want to at least say I've tried and really given music a shot. And so it's been a fun, crazy adventure since then.
Okay, so once you kind of figured out that you wanted to go down that route of singing early on in life, what were kind of your first steps to make that happen? Aside from, eventually kind of going into the corporate world, let's kind of step back into, the majesty of being a child and kind of having the, magical perspective for it. What kind of steps did you take to motivate yourself to get involved back then?
Yeah. So I think it was all so organic as a kid. I mean, if only we could go back and have like the motivation and inspiration that we did when we were that young, right? But I was in voice lessons, I was in dance lessons. I started acting when I was probably 5. I love musical theater was always my favorite. I did normal plays, but the ones with music were always my favorite. So I was just always in lessons. My parents were super supportive. So they were always taking me to different, rehearsals or practices or driving me to different singing competitions and all those types of things. But the big thing that I remember was that I was always trying to do music someone else's way as a kid. I wanted to sound like Shania Twain. I sang a lot of country music then, or I wanted to be Celine Dion, or I wanted to be Shania Twain when I grew up. I guess I hadn't realized you couldn't become another person yet. But it was always music that fit into someone else's box.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's part of why I didn't give it up easily, let's say, when I went into the corporate world, but I think had I realized at a younger age, like I can do music my way and I can sing my way and I can write songs my way. I hadn't really stepped into the role of an artist until much later in life, which was a big turning point for me.
Sure. So that's kind of where I wanted to lead into next. Once you did kind of decide that you wanted to get back into music, how did you kind of work with the other musicians you were around to kind of demonstrate the artistry that you wanted?
Sure. Well, when I very first started the band, I had no idea what I was doing. I know like plenty of musicians now who are like, oh yeah, I'm in like my 12th band now. And I was like, I've never been in a band other than like church choirs. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. And so we started out doing covers, which was an interesting thing too, because I listened to a lot of pop. My guitar player came from like heavy metal and grunge. My piano player played mostly classical. So I had this like fusion of musicians who all had completely different backgrounds. And we were trying to figure out, what do we play? Like, what kind of band do we want to be? Like, what kind of music do we want to play? And so it took us, our set list was kind of confusing for a while because I don't think we had a clear direction yet. And then I was like, okay, I'd like to write music. And I remember YouTubing, how do you write a song? Because I had no idea. And it was like, oh, you pick a chord progression. Lots of songs have 4 chords, so starting with some of the really basic stuff. Because when you're first writing, like, you don't know what you're doing, and there was a podcast, oh gosh, I can't even remember the name of it now, but they bring on lots of different songwriters and they talk about, what's their collaborative process like? Do they start with lyrics and then write a melody? Do they start with, drums and bass and build up from there? And I would just listen to that and listen to different people's creative process and figure out what worked for them. And at the time, I played some piano, but I hadn't played in years. And I had never played guitar. And so I would most of the time just write melodies and lyrics and then bring them to my band. And then they would help me put chord progressions together because I really didn't play my instruments much at all at that point in time. And obviously we had some things that should never be heard. I think everybody's had a list of those songs and you stumble across them randomly in your Google Drive and you're like, oh, thank God we've come a long ways.
Yeah.
But that's really how my music began in the very beginning. And all my time with my band, I would generally write the music. I would write the chord progression, or I would write the song and then bring it to them and we would build it up together. But we never really mastered writing collaboratively in that project. Like I would start it and then we would build on it from there. Another couple of people who have been super instrumental in my growth as a musician over the past couple of years. I decided to learn play guitar. And so I started taking lessons from Mark Young at Silver Sound Guitar. I'll give them a plug because they're awesome. But what I really liked about their studio, and they do everything, vocals, piano, you name it. But he's been a musician his whole life. He used to tour. And so he had a very different approach to teaching music than I had grown up with. Instead of being like, hey, here's a book on how you learn to play guitar. Let's play Mary Had a Little Lamb 70 times until your ears bleed. Which was kind of my experience learning music as a younger kid. I don't know. It was just very, and maybe that's the way it had to be as a kid. But anyways, his approach was very like, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? And I was like, I just want to be able to play guitar to write music. And within under 6 months, I was, singing and playing guitar at live shows. I mean, nothing extravagant, obviously, and writing music. So he really was instrumental to me, not only in learning guitar, but also in understanding how does this industry work and who do I distribute my music through and what is a distribution company and what are, licensing different rights to sync and mechanical licenses. And, it's just this whole massive can of worms. You think like, I'm going to write music and put it out. And then you start learning and you're like, holy smokes, this is a lot of things. Yeah. And then I also started with a vocal coach there too.
So we've kind of led up to it already, but haven't exactly gotten into it. What is the current project that you're working on? What are you guys doing? And are you out there doing shows and stuff?
Absolutely. So my new project is Angela Hart. And I'm really excited about this one. We've kind of been in the rebuilding phase right now, so I'm itching to get music out there again and be playing live again. Um, because we've been putting in the prep work for many months now, but I haven't played a show in a minute. So my new release is going to be dropping on May 19th. It's the first release of the Angela Hart Project, and then I have a show up in Denver May 25th at the Black Buzzard at Oscar Blues. So we're super stoked to get the ball rolling. I've been working with new writers and also a new producer for all of the songs on my new project. So it's been a whole new ball of wax. It's been a lot of fun. I met through a mutual friend last year, a lady named Caroline Lofts. She's from London, and we hit it off and became quick friends, but she's been writing for many, many years, and we just clicked in a way I've never written or I've ever really been able to collaborate with someone before. So it's been a really cool learning project, and we're pretty proud of what we've created. We're excited to see how the world likes it, because I feel like we've really leveled up in my musicianship. So yeah, it'll be cool to see. I'm getting to like check off new things on my bucket list, like getting to work with choreographers to prep for the show, stuff that I've always wanted to do for my personal music projects that I haven't gotten a chance to do yet.
Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like you're recording and releasing material, and you have, maybe not anything scheduled yet to do live, but that's, what you're working up to.
So my next live show is May 25th. Yeah. So that'll be up in Denver at the Black Buzzard at Oscar Blues. So it should be a good time. I'm playing with Bunny Blank and Pure Ecstasy. So yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, so with all the time that, you spent in music and then kind of focused on your career for a bit and then came back, what are, some of the memories that stand out to you as some of like your motivating moments?
I think the first thing comes to mind is, so when I was trying to pick, obviously Angela Hart isn't my given name, and I went through a bunch of names trying to figure out what to call this project. And I ended up choosing the name Angela Hart because for me, and I know this is for many people, but music is just, I don't know how I went so long without writing, because it's become the way that I process and how I have so many emotions. Like I love hard, I cry hard, I hurt hard, I all all the things. I am, for better or for worse, an incredibly passionate person, and having a place to put that music or to put those emotions is such a cool process. And it's such a vulnerable process. I don't think that that's the thing I anticipated. Like it kind of came as a surprise, because you write these songs like when you're in the heat of something hard, or you're, I remember I wrote one song for my band, like in the dark at my friend's house, sobbing on the floor with my guitar. And it's a beautiful song. But so there's all these little moments. And one of my best friends, she said her little daughter is probably, I think she's 5 now. I call her my universe baby. And she said to me, or she said to her mom, she said, "Mom, when do we get to go to another concert of Angela's where I get to stand in the grass and I get to dance? Because that's my favorite part of summer." Mm-hmm. And a lot of shows don't have kids in them, obviously, but some of my favorite shows have been the ones that have kids, because there's this like authentic joy that children give that I think sometimes we lose as adults. And I remember being a little kid and, seeing musicians. I remember one show very specifically at the YMCA, and there was an a cappella group playing, and I got to meet them afterwards, and they like signed this paper for me. And I was just so inspired and so moved. And so to get to bring a place for other people's emotions to go to them is so meaningful, whether it's a little kid who gets to dance and kick balloons around and get a, crystallized sticker and tattoo. That was my old band's name. Or whether it's, a lot of my new music is, it's hard and it's sad and it's angry and it's real and it's raw. And as much as I love rainbows and sunshine, these songs are going to be a place for people to cry and to be like, yeah, that was hard, man. I feel like I went off on a tangent, but that's what came to
No, no,
mind.
no. That was great. So on that note, where can people follow you and track when you're playing shows, and then also when you're releasing music?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Angela Hart Music. I'm getting ready to relaunch TikTok, so I'll be there soon. And then you can also find me at angelahartmusic.com.
Awesome. And so I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last words. So just a message in general that you want to throw out there that you feel you resonate with.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2023 has been an interesting year in my life. Probably the most challenging one yet, which I said about 2022. So hopefully we're heading onto greener pastures. But I've gone through some really tough stuff this year, and I've watched some people that I love go through some really tough stuff this year. And it just seems like, I don't know, everybody's having a tough go of it, or at least a lot of people are. And so I guess my message is, let's just be kind and let's love and let's stick up for the people we care about and do the right thing. And, I was joking about the Adventures of Virtue, that little thing when we were kids, with a friend the other day. And I said that unfortunately, it seems like a lot of us kind of lost track. We forgot, like, I don't know, the world kind of forgot how to be nice to each other and be respectful and, honor what we say and be truthful and not lie. And so it's, I don't know, maybe as simple and basic as that sounds, I think that's my message is, let's just be there for each other and step up, because the world can be a better place. We just have to choose. I know there's tough shit, but love the people that you love and tell them you love them.